Since Boris Johnson became Mayor of London almost 8 years ago, the city has experienced the biggest housing challenge since the Victorian era. And as he prepares to leave office early next year, the crisis is still far from solved. Since 2008, London's economy and population have boomed, pushing house prices to above their previous pre-financial crisis high. The price of an average London home has increased by 44% since Mr Johnson took office in May 2008. As a result, housing is the issue on every Londoner's lips. Soaring house prices have been accompanied by an influx of foreign cash, triggering heated arguments about who should live in the new high-rise towers beginning to dot the skyline.
Loose global capital from less safe economic regions like Russia, China and the Middle East have been heading for the residential property markets in London and New York principally. This is taking out the top end of property from the London market because it's merely being used as safe deposit boxes for this capital. This then has an effect of pulling the rest of the market upwards. Couple that with a lack of supply and you see why prices are skyrocketing.
As in the Victorian era, Mr Johnson believes Londoners should be housed within the city's boundaries. When the capital's population grew rapidly in the 19th century, areas like Belgravia were built in a construction boom. London's population has grown by nearly 730,000 people since Boris Johnson took office. He too faces a housing challenge. Mr Johnson's first target in 2008 was to build 32,000 homes a year. Now that figure has been revised up to 49,000, and some people say the city needs more than 60,000 a year. But despite upping the target, London built just 20,520 homes in 2014-15. Meanwhile, the affordability crisis has pushed a generation out of home ownership and into the private rented sector, Boris Johnson's critics claim.
I think that he's made City Hall a mecca for property developers all across the world, and we need that investment to build the homes that we need. The problem is that we're not actually building the homes that we need. The homes are being built at 1 million, 2 million more, and what we really need is homes for people who can, work as a teacher, as a police officer, and still have a safe, affordable place that they can call home. And too often we see those developers sort of skirting their affordability obligations, and that's really going to have a big effect on the job market, as we already see entry-level jobs are being hard to fill because people just can't afford to live in the city anymore.
In a bid to tackle the problem, Mr Johnson and colleagues have shifted from myriad fragmented funding programmes to a holistic approach, focused primarily on the needs of specific neighbourhoods called housing zones.
One of the things that we've seen in recent years, even though London's had a buoyant market, is that actually there's only a handful of areas, a handful of boroughs that have contributed significant numbers of new homes. So what we're doing is working in partnership with both the private sector and local government, local authorities, to designate 20 areas of London to make sure that we have a real focus around accelerating residential house building activity, whether that be around a transport node, whether that be around a town centre regeneration, or whether that be around turning brownfield land, usually ex-industrial land, into new homes, beautiful new homes.
Critics say much more could have been done during Mr Johnson's time in office, but City Hall says it needs more power. So Mr Johnson has initiated the biggest expansion of local power since the Greater London Council was abolished by Margaret Thatcher in 1986. He has added control over housing policy and spending to the Mayor's primary area of responsibility, transport.
When the GLA was originally set up, it couldn't invest in housing, now it can. I think it's also really, really important that there's a strong role for London government in assembling land so that we can go in there and really transform a place and look at the powers that we have and the resource that we have in order to enable that.
Mr Johnson will leave office next spring, and London is set to see a fierce battle to be his successor. His housing power grab will leave the next mayor as the most powerful politician London has seen for a generation. Kate Allen, Financial Times, London.